Hi guys, Brian Buckosh here, core design engineer with Brunswick Bowling. Try not to stare too long, it's the new DV8 Medusa. Medusa is a brand new nameplate for the DV8 lineup. It contains the eye-popping Insider Max Flip cover stock that's found on the Hellraiser Return, and pairs it with a brand new core, the Medusa core. Let's check it out. This core contains a total differential of 0.048 and an intermediate differential of 0.011. 048 controls the track flare and thus the total hook of the ball, and 048 is a fairly medium-high amount of total track flare, and of course 011 intermediate differential is the asymmetry of the core that controls how hard the ball is going to come off the back of the pattern when it sees the friction, and 011 is fairly moderate for an asymmetrical ball. It's higher than the 0 intermediate differential symmetrical balls, but it's not quite as high as the high intermediate differential balls like the Hellraiser series, so this is going to be a very versatile kind of intermediate step between those two balls in terms of total strength. This ball was built to handle a medium-heavy amount of total oil volume with good strong back-end motion, and these core numbers suit that motion target perfectly. Of course, this core also has some goodies like dot and dynamic core. Dot is the circle engraved dot that you see on top of the ball where the pin used to be. The pin's on the bottom, so you can put any layout you want on this ball without worrying about drilling through the pin or voiding the warranty. And of course, dynamic core is that blue stuff that you see when you drill into the outer core. That is a more rigid outer core material than the original material that we used to use, which means that it won't compress when it goes through the pins. That translates into more strikes because it has higher hitting power. And of course, all of this is wrapped in the Insider Max Flip cover stock. Like I said, it was originally on the Hellraiser Return, and it's here again in this Medusa. They have very similar finishing steps as well, so the real difference here is the core. Now, without further delay, I'm going to take you to a couple comparison charts and show you how this ball stacks up with the rest of the DV8 lineup. First, I'm going to take you to the DV8 comparison chart. First is DV8's marketing chart. It has oil on the bottom, and the y-axis is the back-end reaction, which is maybe a little nuanced difference from how I compare my chart, but relatively speaking, all these balls are laid out in a similar location, with DV8 Medusa built to handle a medium-heavy amount of oil, kind of squarely in the middle between the Activate and Verge series balls and the stronger ASIMs like the Warrant Solid and the Hellraiser Return. Flipping over now to my chart, which is laid out fairly similarly with oil volume on the bottom from lightest on the left to heaviest on the right, and response to friction on the y-axis with the sharpest responding balls toward the top of the chart and the smoothest responding balls at the bottom of the chart. And there's probably a slightly nuanced difference between total response, which includes mid-lane traction, compared to the back-end motion, which is how the balls are laid out on the other chart. But you'll notice if you compare them that I have the balls placed very, very similarly to the marketing chart. I don't think marketing's pulling your leg. I think they're really trying to show you what these balls do, and I agree with how they laid them out on the chart. You'll notice Medusa highlighted in yellow toward the middle of the chart. It's in the strong toward the sharp category of ball motion, and it nests right next to Hellraiser Return. You'll remember from my previous comments that this ball has the same cover and it has a very similar finishing process to the Hellraiser Return. And so the difference here, of course, is in the core dynamics. The Medusa flares a little less and has a little less intermediate differential, which means it's going to rev up a little later, it's not going to hook quite as much, and it's going to blend off the friction just a little better. Still going to have a nice strong back-end motion, and a lot of players are saying that this ball is actually more angular, maybe because it's revving a little later, or maybe because when it sees the friction it doesn't jump off of it quite so hard, it kind of sweeps off of it a little more than the Hellraiser Return. I personally still think that the Hellraiser Return, I categorize it more sharp because it responds to friction more abruptly, more quickly, and that's really what I'm categorizing on that y-axis. So I do see the Medusa maybe being a little longer and just a little smoother, which to me makes it the more versatile piece. I think the Hellraiser Return is perfect for when you really want to step in, open up your launch angles, send the ball from the middle out toward the friction and watch it boomerang. I think that's where Hellraiser Return really shines. Whereas Medusa, being the slightly more moderate ball, I think is going to be a little better for house shots with friction, maybe an over-under situation where you want to blend them a little bit but still have strong back-end motion. Certainly the Medusa, I wouldn't consider it a benchmark ball because it is just a little too clean and a little too sharp, maybe a little too sporadic to be considered benchmark. But as soon as you get a little mid-lane friction, some of your bigger balls like your Damn Good Verges, your Hellraiser Blazes are reading too early or too strongly in the mid lane, the Medusa is going to be the perfect step down to breeze through the mid lane friction and see the pattern the right way at the back of the lane. And so to me, like I said, the more versatile ball, maybe the most versatile ball that we have, at least in the ASIM lineup right now. Not to say that the others aren't good, because they all have their place in terms of motion shapes. Of course, if these big balls are too much and the Medusa or the Hellraiser Return are just a little too jerky off the pattern, then you can switch to the Activate series, which actually is just a little less ball overall. It's symmetrical, which means it's going to blend off the end of the pattern just a little more smoothly with a little less back-end reaction. Albeit, I do think the Activate does start up a little earlier than the Medusa, but it has a bigger hook window, which means that it's not going to be so uncontrollable off the friction. That's the perfect step down if the Medusa or the Hellraiser Return are a little too much ball for your pattern. That's all the information I have on the brand new DV8 Medusa, available in pro shops worldwide right now. Make sure you swing by, pick one up, and turn your competition to stone. While you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook pages, Bowling Buckosh. Feel free to write a comment below or drop a question below. I'm happy to respond. Make sure you check back often because I make new videos as new releases from the brands of Brunswick come out. And until next time, thanks for watching.